Destiny 2 is not a stealth game. You spend most of your time firing loud hand cannons and throwing grenades that spawn more grenades that cause enemies to explode when they die. But if you play the Hunter, you can take a much more subtle approach to battle. Okay, maybe it's not that subtle because you're still going to blow a lot of stuff up, but most of the time the enemy isn't going to know where you are. For today's video, we're going to look at a loadout for the Hunter's Way of the Pathfinder that has infinite invisibility and incredible damage potential. Let's get started. Before we talk about the loadout, we're going to break down the Way of the Pathfinder. This is the bottom branch of the Hunter's Nightstalker subclass. Its melee ability, Vanish in Smoke, throws a smoke bomb. You and any allies caught in the radius will turn invisible for 8 seconds or until taking an action. However, dodge does not remove your invisibility. You'll also gain a stack of Heart of the Pack if you're hit by the smoke bomb. This buff increases weapon reload speed and handling, mobility, recovery, and resilience. Next, the lockdown passive doubles the duration of grenade effects. The passive ability Combat Provisions adds an additional effect to grenades. Damaging enemies with them reduces your melee cooldown, and hitting yourself or allies with Vanish and Smoke reduces your grenade cooldown. Finally, your super is Mobius Quiver. You can fire multiple Shadow Shot arrows in succession, and successive shots against a tethered enemy deals increased damage. Defeating tethered enemies creates Orbs of Light and grants nearby allies Heart of the Pack. For our loadout, the exotic armor is the 6th Coyote. I've never been a huge fan of this exotic armor piece because similar to the Armamentarium on Titans, it's very lackluster without the right context. The 6 Coyote's exotic perk is Double Dodge, and it gives you a second dodge charge. With Gambler's Dodge equipped, dodging near enemies will reset our melee ability. While it's not always easy or practical to fight at close range, especially in higher difficulty content, because we can make ourselves invisible, Gambler's Dodge's effects are much safer to trigger. Also, dodging and resetting our melee isn't a frivolous act. Remember, whenever Vanish in Smoke hits you and your allies, your grenade cooldown is reduced and you gain a stack of Heart of the Pack. With 5 Paragon mods, the Hunter Dodge has a 10-second cooldown, which means we can have a 100% uptime on Heart of the Pack. To give the dodge even more value, on the class item, I'm going to slot 2 Bomber mods. Every time we activate our class ability, our grenade cooldown will be reduced. The premise of this build isn't very complicated, but executing it effectively in combat is where things start to get interesting. So let's head into the field and talk more about how to make this work. Alright folks, for today's testing we're diving into the arms dealer Nightfall Strike in the classic Nightfall playlist. So we're not going to have to deal with any champion enemies, but we are in a challenging environment that's going to put the build through its paces. Now the first thing I want to do is show off the rotation that you want to use to get the most out of this build. We're going to throw down a grenade at one of those void shields and I'm going to activate my invisibility. Now what I want to do before I start attacking is activate my dodge to refresh my smoke. So now, when I lose my invisibility, I can reapply it instantly. So dodging while you're invisible provides you with a huge advantage. So when your invisibility does wear off, you can just bring it right back. So again, before I make my strike, I'm going to do that dodge. Invisibility wears off, I can just pop another smoke if I want to. And already we're seeing the bomber effects coming into play in tandem with the combat provisions on the smoke. We're getting a ton of grenade cooldown reduction. It feels very, very smooth. So let's get out into this big crowded area. We've got a lot of enemies to deal with. This is going to be fun. Now unfortunately right now I don't have an invisibility available, so what I'm going to do is try to push up a little bit aggressively so that I can trigger Gambler's Dodge on that guy who's kind of sleeping on the job. And now I have my safety available to me again. So if things get crazy, I can pull back into cover and just turn invisible. Now I want to reposition a little bit. I'm going to use the dodge. Now we throw that grenade, go straight back into invisibility because there's so many enemies around me and I don't want to deal with that problem. Hey, don't run. There we go. So it's all about using the invisibility and the power that it provides to your advantage. So let's throw a grenade, Gambler's Dodge, go back in and use it to reposition. Because when you're in this state, enemies are not going to mess with you. They may shoot at your last known location, which can be a bit frustrating if there are enemies like Hive with boomers and any enemy that has an area attack. If they're shooting at your last known location, that can be a bit irritating, especially if you're low on health. But in general, you're going to be able to use the invisibility to great effect to get away, so you can just chill out and allow your health to come back. So unlike a lot of builds that don't have any innate health restoration, like the Way of the Current that we were using in our last build video, even though I don't have any way to heal myself, it's very easy for me to take advantage of my recovery, because when I'm invisible, enemies are much less likely to hit me. And I'm going to use the area effect on the grenade to kill those dogs that are roaming past. And what I want to do here is activate my smoke, so I get the invisibility running towards the objective. It is going to wear off pretty soon, so let me dodge and make sure I have it ready. As soon as I go for this deposit, I just want to go back in so things don't get too out of control. So a setup like this is all about controlling the flow of combat and making sure that you always are in an advantageous position. Another great thing about invisibility is you can use it to close the gap before you fire off a shotgun blast, so you can kill tough enemies that way. Woof! Taking a little bit too much damage there. I'm actually playing really slowly and really passively because I'm just kind of enjoying running around and not getting killed by enemies. That's always kind of fun. Oh, caught the smoke bomb after it detonated. But at this point, I have an opportunity to use the Mobius quiver because we got a big grouping of enemies. Okay, got bounced up into the air a little bit, but we cleared him out pretty well. And there we go, that's going to do it for the loadout for today. The Way of the Pathfinder received some pretty awesome buffs at the start of Shadowkeep, and when you really dive in and make a completed build for it, the results are impressive. The ability to sustain Heart of the Pack ×3 for an entire Nightfall is phenomenal. That increased reload speed, mobility, resilience, and recovery feels great. But also, being invisible is insanely valuable. You have basically free reign of the battlefield, and it lets you utilize weapons like shotguns and submachine guns that don't always have the best footing in every situation because of their limited range. So if you're looking to play a CQC playstyle with the Hunter and don't want to get completely destroyed all the time, the Way of the Pathfinder with the 6 Coyote and a bunch of Paragon mods is definitely the way to go. With all of that said, we're going to wrap things up here, but don't worry, there's plenty more coming in the future. So if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.